Welcome back, y'all, to On Any Given Saturday. Cassidy and I are back to debrief week two. We wanted to specifically touch on Georgia, and as we're getting ready to go into a really big week, after our bye week, we get to play Alabama. Cassidy, just to start off, give me just your initial thoughts, on this game against Kentucky.
Well, we survived a scare in what really should have been a Kentucky win with how they played, outgained us in every category. But I'm really just proud of our defense and how we battled through the whole game, not giving up any touchdowns. They made a couple of long field goals too, but our offense, we have got to get something together before we face Alabama because Jalen Milroe and that Alabama offense has looked better and better each week. They played really well against Wisconsin, had a lot of yards on the ground, and we have got to tackle better. I just, I, there's a few concerns from me, but at the same time, I'm like, we do this every single year. We did it last year against Auburn. We did it a couple years ago against Missouri. There's just always a game, and it's usually on the road. It's usually a night game, and we're just flat and we have no energy. Don't you agree, Molly? It's just like a Georgia thing.
Yeah, it's been weird, and I hate to be, how everybody is, but it's like I look at plays sometimes and I know I'm not a Georgia coach, but I'm like, what is Mike Bobo doing? What is he thinking? Like, what is this game plan we're coming out with? Because like you said, we're not making the explosive plays, but like we're struggling to put together drives, especially this week against Kentucky, who we've seen other teams score a lot on them. But I wanted to mention, like you said, the defense. I was having to remind myself that like we have a defense that hasn't given up a touchdown yet. Like we played 3 games. We played against a good Clemson team. We played against an SEC team, and we haven't given up a touchdown. Like it's field goal after field goal. And I mean, you have to give Kentucky's kicker, Alex Rayner, credit where credit's due. Like he went 4 for 4. He had a 55-yarder. It's like they had to earn those 3 points every time. It wasn't like we were just giving them easy field goals from the 20-yard line. And as everybody says, defense wins championships. I'm such a firm believer in that. We saw that back in, I guess that was our, what was that, 2021 championship? Like our defense made such an impact for us. So give me your thoughts kind of on how you think this next week's going to go, and are we going to be ready for Bama?
Yeah, I think it's important to take the positives from the Kentucky game instead of looking at all the negatives. One positive for me was we didn't have any turnovers. We did fumble a few times, but we recovered it, so we didn't turn the ball over. There was that scary pick six that got called back because it was an incomplete pass. But you just have to look at the positives like that. No sacks allowed. They didn't get to Carson either. They completely beat us in the trenches. I mean, they were just beating us up. And I think that it's good that there were some things that need working on as we enter this bye week, which is really coming at the perfect time. It's like Kirby has now a motivation because now we're ranked number 2 behind Texas. We have all these motivators almost to work with since we have 2 weeks off before entering Bama. So I'm really just trying to look at the positives, the things we did right. And I think that there are a lot of things to fix. Carson didn't look sharp, but I think, like you mentioned with Mike Bobo, I think there's things we can improve to put Carson in better positions. And the only thing, one of my big concern is that Tate Ratledge is hurt and he won't be returning until earliest November. Um, but I think that we're really lucky that we have this bye week.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot. I think just figuring out just the way this team works, because with just graduating so many people every year, you're losing key star like players, especially on offense. You have the transfer portal. Like you're figuring out how this new offense works and like what kind of flow you need to get into. Um, I like we have so much talent at wide receiver, right? Like we have Dominic Lovett, like we have Arian Smith and Dylan Bell and like Oscar Delp. Like we have talent out there. We didn't just lose everything. It's just learning how to utilize that. And we have like running backs, Robinson, Etienne. Like we have people that Frazier that can make plays. We just got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but I agree. I think that Texas should be number one. Just a little side note. I mean, their performance Saturday looked better than ours, and they did that with their backup quarterback. And I know that's Arch Manning, and so like, yes, he's extremely good, but that's still their backup. And so I think they deserve that, but I do hope it gives Georgia a little push to not stay content where they are.
Yeah, do you think it's an overreaction what the whole world is shouting, which is, Georgia is not even a top five team, Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee's going to kill Georgia. I mean, we've seen this in years past, Molly, and look what we did the
Yep.
week after they dropped us. But what do you have to say to those haters?
Well, during the game, I felt like I was one of them, and I feel like I was just caught up in the emotion. I feel like I was caught up in just being like, oh my gosh, like, are we gonna even win this? But I think now that I'm like settled down, I'm like, you know what? Yes, it could be an overreaction. Like, we're only in the third week. Like, teams are still figuring things out. Kentucky, we historically don't play good there. So I still think we're definitely one of the top teams in the nation. I still think we can definitely be the number one at the end of the season. I still will never get over the fact that we should have been in the playoffs last year because I think we would have won it. But I also know Kirby can get us there. Like he
Yeah.
knows how to coach us to national championships. He's done it twice now. So I think it's early. I think it is overreacting. It's one game. Like Alabama didn't look great against USF at the for that
Yeah.
whole like what 2.5 quarters just a few weeks ago, and like now they're looking great again. So it happens.
Yeah, and I also want to, and I do not want to overlook the fact that we had a very poor offensive performance, but I want to keep in mind that Kentucky played really well. Like they are not a bad football team. Like it's not like we were just like losing the game the whole time. Like they stayed in it because they played well. And I know they got whooped around by South Carolina, but South Carolina's not bad either. They should have beat LSU on Saturday. They outgained
Yeah,
LSU in most categories. And they kind of got screwed with the refs. And that's a whole
that was
nother
a
rant
tough
because
call.
that was an amazing, crazy game, LSU South
Yeah.
Carolina. But I don't think that the game with that Kentucky had against South Carolina was translated at all to how they played against us in Lexington. I mean, they just completely beat us around. Their defense played great. And a stat I heard today that I wanted to mention is that Georgia had a 38.2% offensive success rate against South Kentucky on Saturday, which is not good for those that don't know. That's not good. It's 38% success rate on offense. And the last time that Georgia has had a success rate that low was in 2020 when Florida beat us. And which is good because it's been a while. The last time before that was five times in 2019 we had an offensive success rate lower than 38.2%. And so what that shows to me is that how far Georgia has come to now this expectation of Georgia being the number one team in the nation that we just can't believe it. Nobody can seem to even accept it when Georgia doesn't play perfect. And the fact that we had a good football team in 2019, it was not our best of years past, but we had a good football team and we still made it to the SEC championship. And we had 5 games with a lower offensive success rate than how we played against Kentucky. I think we're gonna be all right if that's our worst game of the year.
Yeah, I like that stat. I did not know that. So we love fun stats. I definitely enjoy that one. And one other quick point I wanted to make, and this is more, I guess, just for defense, but like for people who don't follow football as closely, especially Georgia, like Kentucky's starting quarterback is Brock Vandagriff. He played at Georgia. He literally has been practicing against our defense for years. Like he knew what he was coming up against. And so I think some people are like, oh, well, he should be scared. Like, he knows how good the defense is. But I'm like, he's used to playing against these boys. He knows how they work. And so I think, in a sense, it almost gave him an edge, but we still were able to hold him to just 14 of 27. Like, they did have a lot of rushing yards, about 170, but the defense was still able to stop someone who knew what was coming for them.
I love it. I love that point. You are so
So,
right
just,
on about that. He knows how Kirby works. He
yeah.
knows some of the defensive scheme, and that definitely gave him the edge and probably a little bit of comfort as well. And you just have to remember, like Mark Stoops was not going to let this team come in and like get embarrassed by Georgia after they were embarrassed by South Carolina. They were going to play their best game, and they did. But we just have to improve moving forward. There's no excuses. I mean, we got away with a win. And we have 3, 4, 5 really tough games coming up that we have to get ready for.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Kirby's probably telling this to the players too, but we have to take this one game at a time. Like it is a long season. We also, kind of like you said, and this is just the effect of the new playoff scheme. If we lose one game, it's not the end of the world like we're used to, which I hopefully will take stress off me. But I kind of like, I don't know if how I like how that settles because it's like, oh, well, if we just happen to drop to Bama, like, oh, well, we still can play in the SEC championship or make it to the playoffs. So I hope that Kirby can hopefully get that mentality out and not let that in, because Bama's going to be good. Like Jalen Murrow looks really very improved this season. He knows how to play against Georgia. He can run. It's gonna be in Tuscaloosa, so we've got our work cut out for us in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring that up because I know you and I don't love the 12-team playoff, and a lot of people do, and I think it is going to be good for college football. But one of the reasons Molly and I do not love it is because we are tried and true fans. We are diehard fans, and we're athletes. Like we
So we
love
don't like to lose.
and we love working hard, and we love the fact that like you have to win every game. And that's how it used to be. Like to win the East, you had to win it. You had to wipe the
Yeah.
SEC. Like you couldn't lose a game. And you're so right on the point you made about the players not losing that mentality of like we have to win this game. It's just it's almost like when you go out and you play your sport. I know for me, if I don't care about winning, I don't play well. I don't play hard, I don't play the same. And obviously the kids are going to care about beating Bama or Ole Miss or any of these ranked matchups. But that's maybe kind of why sometimes they fall flat against lesser opponents. You know, you're going into Kentucky. We usually play Kentucky at the end of the year. It's usually cold or rainy. Of course, it
Mhm.
wasn't this year, but
Always both.
you go in and it's like probably like the least electric stadium in the SEC. Like it's not loud, like there's nothing special about it. Like Kentucky's never won the East, they're never a threat. Like you enter here and it's like 7:30 and you've like been in Lexington all day doing nothing and you're like ready to get this over with. Like they're
Yeah.
not gonna score 50 on Kentucky. Like I get it, but and maybe that'll help I'm hoping entering Tuscaloosa, like they're gonna be mad because we lost to Alabama last year and
Yeah.
we have like 4 out of the last 5 times. So
Lost last time we were in Tuscaloosa, so
yeah,
got a
so
lot to prove.
I get it. I get why, we don't always play well in these other situations. But back to your point, Georgia has to play like they have to win every single game going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And especially with Bama, like they're just going to do the little things right. Like they're a team that you're not going to be able to get away with, having these penalties and PIs or roughing the passer or whatever it is, because there's lots of penalties nowadays to protect those quarterbacks. But they're just going to be on their A game. They're going to have to just do the little things right in order to beat Bama. I'm excited for it. Like, yes, I'm nervous naturally because it's Bama, and even if it's not Saban, like it's still Bama. But I'm excited to see what Georgia's really made of. I think that the Bama game is going to be really telling of how we respond to a team. Like we saw, we handled adversity well, like we pulled out a win, but an even more just skilled and better team. So those are my closing remarks. What do you have?
Yeah, I'm just glad we've got 2 weeks to get ready for it. And we've got a good week of football this week in week 4. Of course, Georgia's off, but we have good slate, some Big Ten, Big 12. We've got good SEC, ACC matchups. So we've got a lot of football for y'all to watch on our off week as Georgia gets ready to face Alabama.
Here we go. And now you discuss some of those games with some special guests. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, we have that coming up for y'all.
Sweet. Well, y'all stay tuned for that video as well that Cassidy was able to film. Thank y'all for watching on any given Saturday, and we will see y'all next week.